welcome to episode 16 of the PE Geek podcast. And as always, thanks for taking the time out of your day to tune into a podcast. It's been a couple of weeks since the last episode, and I've just got back from a workshop tour through the Middle East and the UK, and absolutely loved it. Cannot wait to get back on the road again in January for another tour. And I'll be heading to Sri Lanka and India on this tour, into Hong Kong, and then finishing off in China on some workshop tours as well. So really excited to dive into today's content, and it's actually something that I've wanted to do an episode on for quite some time. However, was prompted to do this by an incident in my own class. Actually, I shouldn't call it an incident, but a student in my class came back from our 2-week holiday break and had a broken arm. And I mean, he's obviously not in a position to be able to participate in a traditional sense in PE. I mean, he's one of our really interested students. He's highly active, highly engaged in PE, but has a broken arm. So this episode will be focusing on, well, what sort of things are we likely to have him involved in doing in the next few weeks, considering the fact that he obviously can't physically participate in the games and activities that we are doing in the next few weeks. So what opportunities exist to engage him or engage those people who have some sort of long-term inability to participate? And how could technology be used to help this engagement or help provide value to you or to the teacher or to the classroom or to their peers, in a sense that actually teaches them something or improves their skills in other areas related to their role as a student. All right, let's dive into it. Now, at the moment, our student group, the Year 5 and 6 students, are involved in a unit of recreation football. Now, this activity in itself is quite active. There's elements of contact that happen in the game, and obviously it's not something that someone with a broken arm should be doing. So that leaves this particular student of ours on the sidelines. And traditionally, sure, we could have them participate in some sort of other activity on the sidelines, which might be a lower intensity, etc. I mean, and in the past, that's been things like bocce and other activities that they can do off in the side just to keep them active and doing something. However, we're very interested in providing these other interpersonal skills to our students, and this opportunity does present itself to be quite valuable. So he is going to be involved in a whole host of activities that will be about providing value to his peers, and this will become something that we can really dive into throughout the use of technology. So one of the first things that he'll be responsible for doing in this unit is setting up a instant replay station, and this can be achieved so easily with my absolute favorite app ever. I mean, it's the best app. There's no other way to do this without using technology. And it's BAM Video Delay. It's a recurring favorite in the PE Geek workshops. But basically, you can set a delay value of up to 2 minutes. And that delay value basically gives you the capacity to produce an instant replay of whatever duration you like. So this student who has a broken arm, but everything else, they're quite mobile, they're quite able to move around, etc., could use the teacher's iPad with BAM Video Delay set to, say, 10 seconds and basically be almost like a third umpire. So if any calls or any sort of decisions about umpiring were not quite clear, we could actually refer it to the third umpire, who would be able to review that over and over and result in a clear decision. So, I mean, automatically he's gone from being a non-participant to someone who has a really active and really useful role in that particular game sense. Extending on that, I mean, he could be using an app such as, say, Video Tagger Pro, which is actually one that I built myself, to create highlight reels. And in the same way, he could be filming the gameplay or filming whatever it was that you were teaching or doing. And basically, as he sees things that are worth tagging or worth saving, if that makes sense, he basically presses the screen, and what the app does is it turns those tags into individual clips or highlights. So basically, imagine an iPad screen, and on it there are 6 names: Max, Julie, Lindsay, Jared, James, and Ben. 6 names on the screen. Anyway, he's filming the game or whatever it is that you're doing. And whenever those students who have their names on the iPad are involved in a piece of play or do something that matches the learning objectives for that session, he just has to press their name. And he repeats this process over and over. Anyway, when he stops recording, the app basically breaks their video up into 6 unique clips. And in those clips are all the sections where Lindsay was involved, all the sections on a separate video where James was involved, all the sections where Jared was involved as a separate video. So at the end, what you end up with is this incredible highlight package that has each student's involvement. Great part is, sure, you could put students' names as the tags, but I really like actually putting in the learning objectives into the tags. So for example, let's say you're teaching the concept of moving to space or running with an opponent. Every time he saw those things being performed, he could tag those actions. And at the end, you end up with this incredible teachable moment type stuff that you could use to reinforce the concept, or maybe help explain it or save it, and it becomes something that you could use to showcase a student's understanding of those things. So Video Tagger Pro is so easy, and definitely something that someone who was on the sidelines could utilize quite easily. Now, if you're interested in downloading that, it's thepegeek.com/video tagger, and it will take you to the App Store to be able to download that. Now, another tool that he could be involved in using is, one of the most helpful things and one of the most useful things is the curation of some form of portfolio. Portfolios are a great way to have ongoing style assessment, and there are a number of tools that you can use here to do that. Now, obviously, a portfolio needs to be looked at in the context of time. So over time, you take photos and videos of students participating in whatever it is that you are doing, and these get saved to a student's portfolio. The idea being that when it comes time to do assessment, you call on that student's portfolio on your device, whatever you are using, and you can very easily look through and see the various artifacts that they have added to their portfolio. Now, this presents a really good opportunity for that student who can't participate to actually be involved in the curation of that portfolio. That means you yourself don't have to be taking photos and videos and curating them into this really powerful collection. The other students in the class can be responsible for that. Now, the tool that I recommend and showcase at the PE Geek workshops is 3Ring, and that is www.3, as in spelt out THREE, ring.com. Anyway, it's 100% free, and you sign up, put your class lists in, and then immediately you can start capturing artifacts and media to particular students. In the long-term point of view, you can then come back in 6 months' time and click on a student's name in the app and see everything that they have been sort of involved in. They could be videos, they could be pictures, they could be audio recordings, a whole host of really powerful stuff that you can then look through and start to assess them on. Better yet, it's a great segue in parent-teacher interviews. Imagine if you brought up their portfolio, clicked on Lindsay's name, and there's all the things that Lindsay's been involved in, a couple of photos, a couple of videos, maybe an interview in an audio style. Sure, you can do that all yourself, but why not get the student who can't participate to actually be a portfolio gatekeeper and give them the task of capturing media for students in your group? Not only are you engaging them in something really meaningful, but you're actually benefiting yourself because you will use that portfolio for a whole host of various administrative and other ideas later on. Now, another idea that I'm particularly fond of engaging people who can't participate is having them responsible for the various setup and pack up, maybe even, of games and activities that you're doing. I mean, while you're facilitating one activity, they could very easily be setting up the other activities. Now, how would you communicate what you want set up? Well, I mean, you could use an app such as CoachNote, which I love. I mean, CoachNote is a coach's whiteboard, basically, that allows you to draw on fields. It allows you to draw on where people should stand and where cones should be set up and all of those sorts of things to make it really clear in terms of what you need to do. So you as the teacher could go through and create these CoachNote explainers, and basically the student who isn't participating could simply just look at them and then set up the games to match that. I mean, what they've ultimately done is they've assisted you. You can see how they follow instructions. They end up with a really valuable role in the class, which is setting up and being a really valued assistant in that PE context. And, you know, they could be doing other roles that then lead from that. Maybe they're assisting in the running of the actual games themselves. I mean, you know, maybe they're actually umpiring. Maybe they are involved in actually teaching to some extent. And you're taking a step back to look at this student-led type involvement. Now, if you're interested in seeing how CoachNote works, I recommend checking out my blog post I did recently called Student-Led Game Setup. And in that, I actually explained how I use CoachNote to get my whole class completing this task where they actually are setting up gameplay, setting up activities and drills and so on themselves, and I assess them on that. So if you visit thepeergeek.com/student-led, you will end up with a blog post related to student-led game setup using CoachNote. That's one of my absolute favorite tools by a million miles. It's brilliant. It really is. And it's so simple. I mean, you can achieve the same thing with a whiteboard, but with CoachNote, you can do it, with unlimited whiteboards. You know, you can only really have one whiteboard with one game on it if you did it with a traditional whiteboard. But with CoachNote, that's unlimited. You can drag in cones and real equipment into the equation to make it much, much clearer. And finally, I mean, another app that I think absolutely, without a doubt, could be used, and I have used in these contexts, are things like statistics and scoreboard type applications. I mean, for example, an app like EasyTag lets you keep statistics on various things that occur. You set up the game boards and you actually say what it is that you actually want to track. And CoachNote, I mean, EasyTag will let you, or the person who's doing the tracking, actually record those. And basically it brings up a panel, and on it you've got the various items that you want to record, up to 40 particular actions that might be worth recording. And basically when the person sees those, they tap the square that's associated with it, and it keeps count. And I mean, you can use that to then become sort of like a teachable moment for you, the teacher. But also it helps the student who's not participating to be involved. And if the things that you're tracking match your teachable objective, they're actually sort of becoming aware of that teachable objective. And they're actually being involved in assessing peers on whether they've achieved that teachable objective. So it's actually quite powerful. Now, in the past, this concept has been used with my students on numerous occasions, where they've set up basically 4 squares of 4 things that we were trying to do in that session. And the students who weren't participating were involved in tracking those 4 things. And then they would basically go up to the students and myself and then let them know what their total was. Okay, so you went, for example, the student might come to them during a break and say, there were 4 times in that observable piece of play where you moved to space to find, the ball, or whatever it might be that you've decided is important and related to your lesson objective. Either way, it's a way to get quantifiable data related to those things that you're looking for. And on the flip side to that, I mean, the simplest way to engage these people is, give them a timekeeper role. give them a scoring type role, and use various apps to achieve that. So a number of apps that you can search for. If you just search scoreboard in the App Store, there's plenty of free ones that do timing and enable them to do scoring as well. So maybe they have the role of doing that in the class. So, I mean, when you really think about it, no student at all should be sitting on the sidelines not participating in some context. I mean, their participation is very much dependent upon what their injury is, or, I mean, what they do. However, if it's something that is bringing value to the rest of the class and teaching them about various other different skill sets that they can use elsewhere, I mean, that's absolutely something that you should be looking at. Now, in the context of students who maybe don't turn up with a change of gear, I mean, there's no reason why they can't be doing even more than this. This example I've sort of ran through is what we're going to be doing with our student who has a broken arm. I mean, they're somewhat limited by what they can do, but if it's someone who hasn't brought a change of gear, I mean, I don't know what your policy is related to that. However, they should be participating to some extent. I mean, maybe not the same extent as someone who doesn't, but they should have some role. And simply putting them on the sidelines and punishing them because they haven't done that, I mean, great, but get them active somehow, some other means. I mean, it's not good enough to put them on the sidelines and think that that's okay. These are some opportunities that you can use with tech. Sure, they don't need to be using tech, but I think these become quite rich and quite valuable for you in your classroom. So let me know if you've got any ideas about what things you can use or what things you do to try and engage that person who can't participate for whatever reason. I'd love to hear them. So that brings us to the end of episode 16. As always, if you visit thepeergeek.com/16, you can see the blog post and all the material related to this episode in terms of the links to various apps and other information that was sort of mentioned throughout the episode. Now, before we disappear, I really wanted to point out a blog post I did recently, which I think is one of my favorite posts in a long time, and that is thepeergeek.com/mystery. Now, in this post, I talked about how I elaborated on the concept provided by Brendan Jones, who blogs at jonesytheteacher.net. And in his post, he explained how he used a MasterChef style idea, the Mystery Box Challenge. Essentially, the Mystery Box Challenge means that the contestants in MasterChef get given a random assortment of recipe items, and they have to build a meal out of it. And they all do it and interpret it differently. However, Brendan had elaborated this and put it into a PE context whereby the students actually would be given a set of equipment and they'd have to make a game out of it. So for me, this concept was really exciting, and I thought there was opportunities here to turn this into an assessment package. So if you head to thepeergeek.com/mystery, you will see that you basically get presented with a random set of equipment. And that equipment basically you then need to use to turn it into a game. It's been heaps of fun, and I would love to see what you guys come up with. Other than that, if you're interested, I've just released a new app called iPads and Video in Physical Education, and it's a brand new app which is an e-course in itself. And if you download the app, you can basically go through the e-course, watch the videos, track your progress, and at the end get a certificate emailed to you showing that you have completed that content. If you want to download the app, just visit thepeergeek.com/videos iPads, so videos iPads, and it will redirect you to the App Store. But other than that, looking forward to seeing you in episode 17. And until then, if you have any questions, just send them through to me via email, or even ask them via our voicemail service by going to thepeergeek.com/voicemail. And I may even feature one of those in a future episode. Okay, see you later.